Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and this is my 1966 Mercury Montclair 4-door hardtop. Real quick before we get into this, I just want to let everybody know right off the bat, this car is going to be getting auctioned off live, no reserve, on Bring a Trailer very soon. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll put a link down to the auction in the description. You guys can check it out, bid on it. You could win this car, no reserve. All right, so let's get into this thing. As I already stated, this is a 66 Mercury Montclair. The Montclair was the kind of the top of the line Mercury that you would get right before you went over to a Lincoln. It was above the Monterey and the other Ford cars on this platform, so it was a luxurious car in its time, and still is. The Montclair is also way rarer than a Monterey. There's not a lot of these surviving out there, and this one's a really nice survivor driver quality vehicle. I picked this car up in April of last year because I really just wanted to know what it was like working on big old American cars like these. I've always seen them online in movies, and they're so awesome. They just have an undeniable presence to them, and they're just so awesome. However, I was kind of scared. I've only ever worked on newer cars, mostly little Japanese trucks, and I never really dealt with something like this. But I decided just to dive headfirst into this thing and pick this car up as a project. I've documented a lot of the process on this YouTube channel. You guys can go back and check some of those videos. However, there's quite a few things I've done off camera that we'll be getting into in today's video. And the previous owner had done a ton of work to this car. I'm just gonna skim over what the previous owner had done to this car. If you're more curious about an in-depth look, you can check out the listing that'll be going live again on Bring a Trailer. But there were a lot of new parts on this car, so I was relatively confident that I'd have smooth sailing. And for a little while, more or less, I did. It was basically a mechanically solid car that just needed some cosmetic work, and I was pretty happy with my first foray into these old American cars. I did a bunch of cosmetics to this thing. I repainted the driver's side door because it was painted with house paint for some reason. Painted the wheels white, cleaned it up all around, made it look nice. However, this car is 60 years old, so obviously some mechanical stuff was going to catch up to me. I was really surprised though, when it comes to the ownership of this thing, how simple the problems were that arose. The first big thing that happened was the starter went out. I was able to get a replacement at a local store, no problem. I fixed the headlights just by cleaning the dimmer switch. I even got the OEM radio working by replacing the mummified original speaker in the dash with just a nice little 4x10 I got off Amazon, and now we have AM radio in this thing that works. However, the whole time I owned this car, I was always plagued by some fuel delivery issues. I would go around a corner and the car would sputter and die. It would go under load and it would die. It would always start right up and run, but then when I kind of asked anything of it, it would die. And at this point I was a little confused because I had a brand new carburetor on it, and I was under the impression that the whole fuel system and stuff had been gone through. I thought I just needed some simple carburetor tuning. That was a little bit out of my league, so what I ended up doing was just going to my local Cars and Coffee, brought this car, talked to some people, and I ended up talking to an older gentleman who was extremely helpful and agreed that he would come and help me tune up this car and help get it running, because he had a Ford LTD back in the day of his own. So I started learning my way around carburetors with this guy helping me learn. I will say, if you're gonna get into an old classic project like this and you don't have experience like I did, if you can find someone to help you out, it seriously made things a million times better. It's so much better to have someone there hands-on helping you out. And that's why going to car meets, Cars and Coffees and stuff like that is great. I literally just went out to my local Cars and Coffee and I had someone who was willing to help me out with whatever I needed on this car. Unfortunately, we still couldn't get this thing to run right. We went through a bunch of possibilities, but decided that there was definitely something wrong in the actual fuel system because the carburetor seemed to be functioning fine. So I ended up pulling it off and pulling it apart, and what I found inside looked like the bottom of the Titanic. And I had known that this car had been sitting for a bit before I had purchased it. The previous owner had gotten it running after it had been sitting for a while. And the previous owner just had a shop do all this stuff. So he just took it to his shop and basically said, get this thing running for me. So obviously they slapped a new carburetor on it, they did a ton of stuff, but they didn't clean the fuel system. And that caused this brand new $400 Edelbrock carburetor just to get completely gummed up because the tank was full of rust. But seeing this made me realize I knew what the problem was. So I pulled this carb off and then proceeded to drop the tank, and what I found inside could not really be described as fuel. So I definitely knew what the problem was at this point. I dumped all the old fuel out, pressure washed the tank multiple times, and then let it soak full of vinegar and water for 48 hours and then neutralized it with baking soda in order to eliminate all the rust in there. Threw in a brand new fuel sending unit, threw the tank back into the car, ran new fuel lines, new fuel filter, and we had a good fuel system now. However, this Edelbrock, as nice of a carburetor as it was totally gummed up with debris. In addition, these older Fords have something called a kickdown on the carburetor, which is essentially a little lever that when you give the car a certain amount of throttle, it tells the transmission to kick down a gear. You can see that right here in this linkage. This is great for if you're on the highway and you need to pass or anything like that. And this Edelbrock did not have that. And the guy who was helping me out just happened to have a stash of Holley 1806 carburetors. I bought a rebuild kit relatively cheap. He showed me how to rebuild this carburetor. We went all the way through it. We cleaned every little piece, put it back together on this car. It's got the kickdown just like OEM would have. This was originally a 2-barrel car, but the previous owner swapped it to a 4-barrel intake. So now we got a 4-barrel Holley on this thing with the kickdown, freshly rebuilt. After we got this thing thrown on there, and with a little bit of tuning, it now ran fantastic. All that was left was a nice shiny air cleaner and a 390 sticker. After we did this, I replaced all the plugs and wires with brand new ones. So this car definitely isn't a show car, but it's a great driver and it really runs great now. The only work that actually needs done on this is the choke could use a little bit of adjustment. It's pretty cold-blooded like a lot of these old engines are, so it takes a second to get it going in the morning, but once it's warmed up like it is now, it runs great. Another nice bonus with this car was the full brand new exhaust the previous owner put on it. And so after all that, this car has been nothing but perfectly reliable since I've done that. I've driven this thing down the highway for pretty long trips on 100-degree days. It stays cool. It honestly has amazing highway manners. And the ownership experience for me was essentially what I expected, if not even a little bit better. I knew that getting into an older car like this would definitely require some hands-on work. But I was amazed with how straightforward everything is on a car like this, and the eagerness of other people who are interested in cars like this to help you out when you need help. This kind of car really shaped a whole generation, and those people really know what they're talking about. However, as sad as it is, those kind of people are not going to be around forever. So it really is important for younger people like me to get into cars like this, learn from these older guys, and be able to keep them on the road like I've been able to do with this one. Interior-wise, my friend and I gave this thing a nice deep cleaning. Like I said, I threw a new speaker in for the radio. I also put in this nice autometer gauge pod, which has been awesome because full transparency, not all these gauges work here. The factory temp and oil pressure gauge are faulty, and unfortunately the clock doesn't work. However, the fuel gauge, speedometer, and voltage gauge do all work. I'm pretty sure it's just a simple little wiring issue back here, but it's good to have some mechanical gauges. And so other than a deep cleaning, not much was needed in this interior to make it nice and presentable. It's not a show car, it's been used for 60 years pretty regularly. So there's some blemishes here and there. The headliner is actually in really good condition, but it's not perfect. There's a couple little tears. When I was cleaning out this car, I found a bunch of matchbooks from Long Beach, California. So it's kind of interesting. This car ended up living most of its life in California, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's why it looks so good today. Frame on this thing is super solid, and this is not a rusted out car in any way. So it's good to know that this thing came from Southern California. Walking around this thing, like I said, we just did a couple simple little things to cosmetically clean it up. Painting the wheels. We painted this door, which by the way matches super well. Honestly, it's almost impossible to tell where the old paint and new paint is, so I'm very happy with that. We didn't go crazy cosmetically. We preserved a lot of this car's history. It's got its blemishes all around, as you can see, but it's really not rotted out. The frame is super solid. It's got a little bit of rust in the quarters right here and right here, but all around, this is not a super beat up car. It's been treated very well throughout its life. The worst of the rust in this car is this quarter right here. This just needs a little patch panel. It just needs a little patch panel right here and right here, but it's still very solid and this could be fixed easily. Like I said, it's a really good driver quality car. Unbelievable the amount of love that this car gets just cruising down the street. People really, really adore this thing. And the hardtop pillarless experience is pretty awesome, and you can have like 6 of your friends here. So if this thing's so great, you might be wondering why I'm selling it. To be honest, I really wish I wasn't. This is such a fun car. However, the simple fact is, first off, I don't need 3 cars. This has always been kind of the second or third car for me. And now that I'm leaving for college, literally today, as I'm filming this, I just won't be able to park this thing on campus. I won't have as much time to devote to it, and I don't want to take up my parents' entire driveway leaving this thing there. So what has owning this car been like as an 18-year-old? Honestly, an amazing experience. I'm really, really happy that I took the dive on this thing and was able to learn so much from it. I want to be completely honest and transparent when I'm auctioning this thing. I don't want anyone to get the mistake that this is a perfect car. It certainly isn't, but it's a great base for whatever anyone wants to do with this thing. I'm really sad to give it up, but I just kind of have to at this point. And this car really just helps shine a light that younger car enthusiasts like me need to keep these old cars alive, because most of the people who love these things just aren't going to be around for much longer to keep them on the road. And there's no reason to see cars like this go to the crusher or just get abandoned. Even though it's a four-door and that automatically marks it as undesirable, honestly, I'm glad this thing is a four-door. Cruising with my friends in this thing, driving a sedan that's as long as a brand new Lincoln Navigator. I mean, that's such an amazing experience in the modern age. And I hope this car really makes someone else happy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, the videos are going to be a little bit few and far between and might be a little bit different than my typical. So thank you guys for sticking with me through that. Once again, if you want to own this car, it's going to be live and Bring a Trailer. No reserves, so whatever it sells for, it sells for. I hope this video helped out people who may be interested in buying this car or just any other classic out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you're interested, maybe buy this car.